What's happening, everybody? This is Todd Wilson with another episode of Elevate Your Game. Today, we have husband, father, former Division I coach, current pastor, current athletic director of Heritage Christian School, three-time cancer survivor, coach, pastor, whatever you want to call him, is Mike Johnson. Mike, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to start the show off with, if you look at our wall of movies, basketball movies. What's your favorite movie up here and why?
Well, Blue Chips is a classic, and I actually had a couple of my former players play in that. But I'm going to go with Hoosiers. I'm a white guy, went to school in Indiana at Purdue, so I'm definitely going Hoosiers.
There you go. That makes the most sense. It's a great classic. It's probably one of the most, like, the first time it was a believable basketball movie.
For sure. So? It was really good basketball. Like, a lot of times when you watch a basketball movie, the basketball is terrible.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I can't watch this. Hoosiers, Blue Chips, for me, was ones where you really believe they were playing basketball.
Right. Not like an above the rim where the guy threw it to himself on the outlet and dunked the ball.
No.
Like stuff like that. It's pretty funny. All right. Awesome. So we're just going to hop right in. And I just want you to talk a little bit about yourself and your experience. I've heard so many stories that you've told me over the years with your experience being a Division I college coach. And now today, how long has it been since you've been a Division I coach?
2008. So it's 15.
15 years. What has changed over that time? What were the good things, during that time? What has changed and what has stayed the same?
Yeah, I think I was a small point guard out of Ohio. Loved basketball. It was my whole world, kind of like these kids today even. And my coach was the biggest influence in my life. I didn't have a father, and he was the guy. Hard and easy. He could rip me in a practice, and then I'd sleep on his couch. So it was a really important figure in my life. And he knew that I just wanted to continue to be in basketball. And I'll never forget, he just said to me, never let him take the ball out of your hands. And I was like, okay. I want to keep playing. And he was like, I just want you to know. And he was just always a really honest guy. He was like, I think you're too short and too white right now. And he was like, I think just be a coach. You have a coach's brain. So I literally chose Purdue University because they were number one in the country when I was coming out of high school. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go there and just suck in as much knowledge as I could. And I went there for 4 years. I just did whatever I could. I was a manager a couple of years, but I also then just developed this stat system under Steve Lavin, who was a graduate assistant there. And again, he kept saying, go get computerized. And I was like, sorry, it was 1989. I was like, I was like, so that's what it was. It was analytics. Like I would report how many fast break points, how many turnovers, this, that, and the other, plus minus, before plus minus was really a thing. And then when Steve left Purdue to come to UCLA, he really helped me and was influential in me getting a job at Cal State Northridge, who had just gone Division I. And I was at Northridge 10 years with Coach Pete Cassidy and Coach Bobby Braswell. And we built that thing up, went to the NCAA tournament. I left, ended up at UC Irvine a year, USC, back at Cal State Northridge, and then really transitioned into high school where I got to know you. I think for me, the biggest change is we would run plays in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s to get a big man a bucket at the basket.
Yeah.
Now it's almost weird. Like I remember my first practice at Heritage, we ran a ball screen up top. Point guard gets all the way in, and he's got a 0-footer, and he kicks it out to a 6'9" guy for a 3. And I was like, why would we not just take the 0-footer? And now, that was a real adjustment for me these four years of coaching at Heritage is, it's just a different game. And so being able to be flexible and to learn what these kids are doing.
There's a balance of learning those fundamentals and just basketball, right? Some things about basketball never change. And then adapting to the way the kids are training, being developed, the way they see the game on TV and highlights and all that, thinking that this is how the game's supposed to be played, and allowing them to grow through that, but understanding that a layup's a layup. The 2 points that you get an uncontested layup is always the number one go-to. Now, an uncontested 3 has moved higher up in the list over time now, right, with the ability for kids to shoot. But I want people to know, as long as you've been doing this, is like that part of basketball should never change. I don't care.
Zero footers is zero footer.
Hey guys, as much as I train you on the step backs and the hezzies and the all that kind of stuff, layups are layups. Uncontested twos come first. All right, regardless of what you see on TV, that is the truth. And so he reminds me of that often. It's like, hey, it's great. I want to get this guy recruited, but he has to make a layup first. Like that's it. He has to make a layup over somebody first. And so I always appreciate your just your transparency and making sure that we're developing these guys the right way. The landscape of recruiting in basketball. So I know you've recruited players, and then you've helped kids get recruited, not just basketball, but many sports. What is the best insight you can give to parents in this time who think their kids are Division One, and maybe they're not?
Yeah, I think education early in the recruiting process is a big thing. Like I think, especially in basketball, especially in boys basketball, the landscape is everyone's Division One, right? I was in Vegas watching our guys play a couple of weeks ago, and every kid there thinks they're going to get a Division One scholarship. And the fact of the matter is very few are. Like I think it's like 3% of all players in the country get to go to college on a basketball scholarship, let alone a Division One scholarship. And so educating yourself on what the reality of what real recruiting is. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was at USC, we would put guys on lists as we saw them play, but then our assistant, our secretary, or whatever you want to call her at that time, would send out 3 to 4 letters to these kids every day. Well, 250 to 300 kids were getting 2 to 3 letters a day from USC, and they all probably thought they were getting recruited by USC.
Right.
But the fact of the matter was we were recruiting 8. And so it probably did mess with all the other ones and then mess with but knowing what true recruiting is. And I think I've kind of narrowed it down to when you hear from the head coach for the first time, hear from him, not a letter.
Right.
You now know you're being recruited.
Right.
And so I think just the education process, getting out in front, not buying into all the hype all the time, but knowing what true recruitment is as opposed to fluff or just getting a letter because you played in Dinos's thing in Long Beach.
Right. Right. I think that's important because a lot of these players now do speak with the assistant coach. Mm-hmm. And we need to know that, part of the assistant coach's job, and it's heavily weighted on this, is getting the top recruits. So, sure, of course, they're going to have a bunch of kids that they're speaking with to recruit. What should they be listening for from the assistant coach, knowing that is going to lead to a discussion with the head coach?
Yeah, and I think ask for that. Yeah. Right? I always tell any kid that I'm working with, like, ask what the depth chart is, ask who else is being recruited in your position, and especially in your area, because then you'll have an idea. All these LA kids, all these Southern Californians know each other. Mm-hmm. Ask for that. And then you'll know if you're being really recruited, and then ask to speak to the head coach. If the head coach gets involved, then guess what? You're being recruited, or they're at least above mildly interested in you. Yeah. If you can't get a call from the head coach, you're not being recruited. You're on a list of probably 15, and you might be 13th to 15th, and they're keeping you warm in case all of these pop off, and then you rise up, which does happen sometimes. But
right. What about kids? When should they really think about accepting an offer and really starting to narrow down a list if they're being recruited? Some kids are waiting to get into a certain level of basketball. Is there a perfect time to say yes to a school?
Well, here's what I'll say. You never say no to a school because you want options in life, right? That's not just basketball. That's everything. Right. So we want to keep options for our guys because then that gives us collateral and leverage moving forward to at least say maybe in the league, I'm being recruited by someone in your league. So we never say no. I think, again, the landscape has changed a little bit too. When I was coaching 15 years at a high level, when we offered, we really meant it. And now I think there's a lot of show offers. Mm-hmm. So it's, again, when we meet with our guys at Heritage, okay, we just got an offer from wherever. The next question is, who offered you? And have you talked to the head coach? Is that real? I think if it's a real offer and you're going into your senior year, or really the summer of your senior year, and it's somewhere, then you got to get on that campus. You got to see it. Yeah. And if it's real in this landscape with the portal and everything for a high school kid, you got to think about taking that sooner than later.
Right. Right. And that gets your foot in the door for one part. Other is there's not that many opportunities. And the longer you wait, the less of an opportunity because there's more kids coming behind you. And, every kid who's being recruited and offered has worked hard,
For sure.
has the academics, and that's why you're being recruited.
Right.
You're not the only one getting the grind in, especially today where everybody has a trainer in the gym and has that opportunity. So I thank you for saying that because I like the kids to hear that because everybody thinks that they're the exception. You are an exception because you're being recruited,
For sure.
just period,
Right.
by any level
Right.
of basketball. So yeah, I just that's interesting. So you've coached on multiple levels. Who's the best college player that you ever coached?
The best college player I ever coached. I mean, Desmond Farmer was really good at USC, but I think overall we had a kid at Cal State Northridge who ended up being a second-team All-American who I recruited out of Eugene, Oregon, Sheldon High School. Big 6'10", legit 5, but he could trail in the secondary break and hit threes. And he was probably overall the best player. His name was Brian Heinley. He ended up going overseas and playing, I think, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
I think we were texting a couple weeks ago, and I think he had just retired like a couple years ago. And he went on that NCAA tournament team in 2001 that lost to Kansas in the first round. And I think overall, when you look at a 4-year career, Brian Heinley.
Nice. Okay. What about high school? The best high school kid you ever coached?
Well, Sky Clark, best. And if I was really clear, because you said you pigeonholed me on college on that last question. I think Sky is the best player I've ever coached at any level.
Regardless of
and he was a sophomore when I got the privilege of coaching him. The dude was just a freak. What he could do, his maturity level for 16 or 15, whatever he was at that point, was unbelievable. He was coachable. Like so many of these 5-stars, it's pretty hard to coach. He was the guy that at 10:30 at night I'd get a text and it was a scouting report and he'd want to know what I just watched this, Coach Johnson, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
And we would go through that. And I think that kind of stuff separated him. But that was the funnest year, maybe. I know we went to the state semifinals. Maybe one of the funnest years of my 35-year coaching career just because of coaching that kid. It was special.
Kid sophomore mixtape is ridiculous. I listen, I might be a little biased because I've known him since he was 10 and working with him, but I look at some of the top high school highlights. Austin Rivers is up there. Aaron Gordon. There's some really ones that people talk about. Sky Clark sophomore mixtape. Ridiculous. Dunking on people, crossing everybody.
The night in the playoffs that he got 51 at Mission Viejo. And
that's not on film, by the way,
right,
for whatever reason.
Right. No one has film of that. There was a fight. It was a great night. Everything went down that night. But Sky literally had 51 in a unbelievable atmosphere of Mission Viejo had a great student section. They're yelling overrated to Sky early in the game. And by the end, they're just sitting over there. And I was just literally blown away and mesmerized that night. Just him knocking down shots.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
Good stuff.
That was a good night.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So what do you watch the NBA at all now?
Yeah.
Okay, so now if you experience coaching NBA, what would you tell kids and their family that they can take and learn from the NBA since they watch the highlights and things so much? They don't watch college basketball where they're trying to go. They watch the NBA, the highest level, because that's where they're dreaming of going, which is not a problem to dream. What skills and things can they take away from the NBA game to apply to their game now to be on the road to being recruited even for college and try to be a pro later?
So it's really funny. I was thinking about this yesterday because I know the training you do with our guys and I know what high school has turned into. But there's high school training and basketball and then there's pro, and I think they're actually similar now. And I feel like college is the one that's still kind of stuck in my era, where it's still kind of, there's positions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like I'm talking to the coach from Utah State yesterday. He's looking for a 5 or a 4.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the pros, you don't really say that. If we even say 5 or 4 in our school gym, it's like cussing. So there's this gap where you kind of got to get ready for college, and then maybe you hope that it translates. But I think in answering your question, I think playing hard never goes away.
Yeah.
like I don't know if the kids when they watch right now understand how hard it is to play in the NBA
Man.
and what those guys are carrying around. What the I know they load manage and that's different from 10 years ago even, but to just know how hard they play. But shooting now has just changed. Steph Curry changed the game.
Yeah.
Like that's why I think Steph Curry he's a top 5 guy now of all time because he literally changed the game like Michael did.
Yeah.
To where now when we walk into the gym, even the 4 and 5 guys are standing out just firing up threes from 23 feet instead of 19 because they think that they can do that. Or when you run a summer camp, the 8-year-old's coming down, he's not going down and working on his layup package. He's literally just shooting threes. So I think shooting it obviously never goes away. I think just playing hard is valuable and underrated.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. We ran into Don Showalter, the director of USA Basketball, last weekend down at the EYBL, and that was the one thing I was asking about a couple players. What do they need to do to improve?
Right.
Like, what would help them make the team? And that was the number one thing he said. It's like he just needs to play hard every possession.
Right.
That's the one. He's like, he's talented. He talks. He does all these. Like, he's skilled. He can shoot. He does all these things. It's like, but he disappears just because of the effort that he puts forward. And I don't think he knows that he's not putting effort in. That's the crazy part is these kids don't know that they're not putting effort in because they don't know what it looks like because they're not watching the right things, and that's for you trainers out there and for coaches is like, teach effort. You got to show them what that looks like. Cause for us growing up, we didn't have a choice kind of. It was like, that was the culture is like, no, if you're not working hard, you're not even going to be in the gym
on the team.
Nowhere. Yeah, you're go play in the park. If you're today, kids get away with it because we're looking to get kids in the gym. Like, oh, we're running these club teams that 6-7 teams or whatever it is, and so kids get away with being lazy and not putting forth effort. And parents too. I want to how you do anything is how you do everything. So playing on the court translates to how you clean your house, how you do your homework and focus on your academics, how respectful you are. Like, I really love the connection of basketball and life so much. And I don't think parents get that. It's give your kids responsibilities. There's kids who've never swept the floor.
Right.
There's kids who never washed dishes or washed their own clothes. Like, stuff like that to me is like, you're not getting them ahead that way.
Right.
Awesome. So it sounds like you've been a lot around just with basketball, everything that you've done in there. I think the biggest thing that I honor about you is that you beat cancer 3 times.
3 times.
3 times. And so, and how long in a span of what?
3.5 years. 3 different cancers.
Man, that is it's amazing. I've seen you fight through the last 2 for sure, and just your resilience and positive mindset, and even when you're not supposed to be somewhere, you're there,
right?
And your just commitment. What was that experience like? How did that drive you to be better and to share, your experience?
Yeah, my first one was kidney cancer, and it was a surgery. So remove half your kidney. You're out a month. Do a little bit of treatment afterwards, and you're good. Mm-hmm. Second one is a similar cancer, and I'm diagnosed literally a year later with prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, you're gonna have surgery, a little bit of treatment, and you're good. And then this year, September, my numbers come back, and they're like, your prostate cancer's back. And this time it's gonna be more of a fight. You got to do radiation, you got to do chemo, you got to do hormone, you got to do all this stuff. And that was a much harder one. I mean, I'm still doing treatment, and there's still days where my legs just are like jello and food doesn't taste good. And, you're still in the fight, even though you're cancer free. And I have to do treatments for like a year. But you kind of have a choice. Like my first cancer, you're going to fight. Second one, I'm pissed. I'm like, no one should have to do this twice. I'm going to fight. I get the news last September, and I'm like, I'm out. I don't want to do it. I'm tired. I'm losing. I joke I have the worst weight loss program in the world because I just keep losing organs left and right. And I really couldn't find the will for like a month. I couldn't do it. And my wife, I think, was getting a little bit worried. And we're a Christian family. We believe in Jesus, and we believe He's going to heal. But I think I was angry at God, and I was angry at just the situation, and I knew that it was going to be really hard, and I couldn't find the motivation. And one day I was leaving the office early from Heritage, and I didn't go to basketball practice that day. And all of a sudden I see all our guys running out, and I went into AD mode. I'm like, what are these yahoos doing? Like, what are they doing? And all of a sudden they run down to me, and they start jumping around me, and they're going 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. And that was an emotional moment. And they were like, we're here for you, we're going to do this, this season's for you. And I was like, okay. And I got in my car, and I was like, gosh darn it, now I don't have a choice. I got to do it for these guys.
Why. Yeah.
And so I tried really hard. Our theme was we do hard things, because I think you talked about it earlier about, basketball makes you a better citizen and all that stuff. Well, life is hard being a husband. It's hard being a parent. Yeah. There's always issues you're going through. And so I had a choice. Am I going to be a whiner, or are we going to do hard things? So I think we kind of adopted the saying, we do hard things, for the basketball season. And there was a point I kept trying to coach, and there was a point, I think we beat Village Christian. It was a great win at home, and I got home and I had 101-degree fever, and I'm throwing up blood, and my wife's like, you're out. And I'm like, I'm not out. And the next morning she let everything calm down. She was like, I need you to just get better and just be a cheerleader from afar. So I stepped back, but the boys were still my inspiration. Like, they would come into the office, they would be like, hey, well, how you doing today? And I would get texts from them. And they were a big part of it. And I really believe in some ways basketball saved my life this year, because I wasn't ready to fight. And then, you commit. Over my desk, it says developing men of purpose. And that's really my motto. And I felt like, okay, I can't leave these guys. They're going to be watching.
Yeah.
And I got to be a strong man here. And so even though I didn't want to, they were kind of my motivation. Even on the sick days, you're throwing up. We were at the Damien tournament, and it was in between quarters, half, and I'm like throwing up in the locker room, and I'm like, I don't think I should stay. But I saw them watching, and I was like, okay, they're watching. Like, I want them to know that life's going to be hard, and as men, we do hard things. And so, I'm cancer free again, still doing some of the treatments for another year, which stinks. So I have a bad week once a month, but overall, we're happy. We're blessed.
Yeah,
I'm gonna live.
Yeah, no, awesome. It's we do hard things, like that mantra. I heard it throughout the whole thing, and it even helped me just like watching your journey, and you kept us updated on kind of what was happening on Instagram or just talking to you. And what I loved the most is you were transparent about it. I walk into the office and say, hey, how you doing today? I feel like crap.
Right.
And I'm not having a good day. And it's like, all right, what do you need?
Right.
And to even remind you, hey, you probably shouldn't be eating that. Yes, Molly. He's eating stuff people shouldn't have. cut. And just to see you, like you said, push through that. Right. Like I think it meant so much to just the whole community, seeing you do that and seeing where you are. Like, you wouldn't even know it. Right. Just speaking to you. Like, did you know that, Karina? Just like,
I had to stop looking at her. So I started looking at camera 3 here. I'm like, I'm not looking at her anymore.
And so I think that's awesome to just continue to overcome things in your life. You've just told me so many stories about everything that you've been through and where you are today, and to most importantly glorify God through it all. Right. And to just love people through it is like, man, that's life. Like, right. You're keep on going, and it's just like it's just literal inspiration to watch you doing that. So tell you in front of the world if you didn't already know. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
What would you say? What principle, besides doing hard things and all of that, is there a principle within that you can share with the people, and mostly the kids, right, as they go through adversity and controversy and things in their life? What principle would you give them through that experience?
I think don't quit. Yeah. Like, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have setbacks. It's similar to what my coach said to me. Don't let them take the ball out of your hands. What does that mean? Okay, I didn't get the Division I look I like, but maybe it's a Division II or Division III, which is a high level. Yeah. Like, I think somewhat, that makes me sad about our current high school basketballers, and not just at Heritage, but overall is, man, they think it's Division 1 or bust, and they have no idea because they've never been to a Division 2 or Division 3 or NAI game, and you're like, holy cow. That's a whole nother level that maybe I'm not even ready for. Right. But don't quit. Like life is. I'm 54 now. Todd has the record of calling me old more than anyone that I've ever known in my life. He holds that record. I think it's at like 32. He's like, this old guy, or this, you're old.
You're 102 in basketball years.
Yes.
So
but at 54, I've learned you're going to get totally knocked down a lot in life. Just things aren't always going to, so you have a choice, get up off the mat or quit. And I don't think quitting is an option if you want to succeed in life or if you want to do things with excellence in life.
I think that's extremely important, and even more important to clarify the quitting part, because I hear, so what if somebody, I'm D1. You're talking about not quitting basketball, not quitting your journey to Division 1. Playing basketball is a gift. And I think all of kids hear that as like, oh no, that's my dream. So I'm D1 or bust. But no, don't quit on the real substance of what we're doing, which is playing basketball.
Right.
That's the same thing for me. I stay connected through basketball, through training, core, being able to do all this, training pros or whatever. To me, I'm in the NBA. Right. I know most of the NBA players. I can say what's up to them. Right. I'm in the game still. And for other people who had those dreams, I think it's important for them to understand it's not about not quitting that goal or changing your goal to stay with what really makes you happy about it, which is probably just being around it.
That's, to me, when I was out in January, February, that's what I missed the most. Just being around the fellas. Yeah. And missing that. So I think you're right. I mean, you played at which Division 1?
I didn't.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Junior college. Yep.
Right.
I tried out at CSUN, didn't make it.
Right. I probably cut you. Sorry.
No, it was before you. I don't know.
No,
it was Bradswell's last year. Were you the coach then?
No. So thankfully, I didn't. I wasn't the guy cutting you. But you're like living proof between not quitting, hustling, knowing exactly what feeds your heart. Jobs are jobs, and everyone's got to have a job eventually. Man, if you can keep a job that you have passion about, and that there's something that gets you up every morning. For me, right now it's coaching high school kids. Like, I love it. Yeah. Because you can make an influence, and yeah, they're knuckleheads and they don't always listen, and they maybe are immature and their parents have an opinion. But when you do get through and you get to see them succeed, man, does that make you feel good? And that's the same passion, like you're saying, that you get through working with NBA guys that I had recruiting 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so this is a segment of our show we like to call My Rushmore, okay? It's going to be Coach Johnson's Mount Rushmore, his top 4 coaches of all time, basketball coaches of all time.
College basketball coach.
College basketball. Coach Johnson's top 4 college basketball coaches of all time. So who's your 4?
Well, I think you got to go Wooden first.
Okay.
Ironically, if he'd have coached in today's world, he would have never made it, because I think he went like 13 seasons before he won a championship. Yes. No one's keeping you 13 seasons at UCLA or whatever it was.
NBA, the last 3 NBA 2019, 2021, all gone.
Right.
They just won a championship.
As good as he was, I don't even know in this world if he makes it to where he ends up winning all the ones that he won. I think Mike Krzyzewski is an obvious choice. And then I think from there it gets kind of muddy, or at least debatable. Bill Self, Roy Williams to me, because I was a part of the Kansas/North Carolina family for so long when I coached under Bobby Braswell. I think he would be my 3rd, but I'm probably super partial there. You can look at Bob Huggins. I don't know.
Bobby Knight, because Indiana.
Bobby Knight, like, even though I went to Purdue and he was in Indiana, like, some of the stories I remember about Bobby Knight when I was coaching when I was at Purdue as a student, were just incredible, because it was such a heated rivalry. And as soon as he'd walk in, people were screaming, and there was just hatred, and him throwing the chair and all that stuff. But he won a lot of national championships. But again, in this landscape, no way he's coaching. We saw that. Like, when he moved to Texas Tech,
he'd be canceled.
You could know. I don't even know if we were allowed talking about him, because he'd be canceled. But he was probably one of them as well. Yeah. What about you?
My 4, so John Wooden for sure. Yeah, I wasn't around for that, but just studied, and you look at all the stuff he did, the people's lives he changed, and how his players talk about him still. Like Coach K, for sure, just his legacy and his journey as well. I think he lost for multiple years before he started winning
I
as
think you're
well
right.
at Duke. And then for me, John Thompson's on
I
that
was just getting
list.
ready to say, I think John Thompson's my fourth when I think about it,
Yeah,
because they were the
they changed the
villains.
culture, man. They
They were
changed
the
the culture
villains
and impacted what it is for Black coaches today
for
in the
sure.
NCAA for sure. I think he was a big part of that. And my fourth, this is tough because you're. I don't know. Nobody's going to agree with me, and I don't care. It's Ben Holland actually, because what he did at UCLA, like 3 Final Fours in a row. I think he's 16 NBA players during that time, and I think if he would have just kept going and kept building what he was, they were going to win one eventually.
Ben is such a great coach. He was at Northern Arizona when I was at Cal State Northridge, so
Mm-hmm.
we were the rivals.
Oh man,
It was like, and
Rocket
every
Mornings.
game was exactly the same. They would be up 20 at half because all their guys would hit threes. Then we'd press them, come back, and we'd either win at the buzzer or lose at the buzzer. But every game was the same. I can remember playing them in the Big Sky Championship. The game was at Montana, and they were up like 25, and our guys had their heads down. I walked in, and their guy hit like their superstar hit like a 70-footer at the buzzer at halftime. So you're down like 23. You're like on ESPN, and I went in and I was like, guys, we got them right where we want them. And then we literally missed a shot at the buzzer to go to the NCAA tournament. But yeah, Ben had some plays that were so unbelievable and so hard to guard. I still remember the names of them. I still remember the misdirection for shooters. Gosh, he is a great coach.
No, I really like this because that was my generation watching UCLA. So, I don't know all the historical ones necessarily, but that's my four. Now we like to call this we hop in the DeLorean, we go back in time.
Okay.
All right, it's called Where Were You When?
Okay.
Okay. So for you, I gotta think of a good one. Gotta think of a good one.
Probably like Noah's Ark. As
Noah's
much as you
Ark.
call me old.
Yeah, where were you when Dr. Naismith created basketball?
I was working in a pooch field.
Right. Let's see. I want to do a good college one. Here you go. Where were you when? And your thoughts. Christian Laettner's game winner. Was that 92?
So 92, 91, yeah. So I can actually remember where I was exactly. I was in a hotel room. I was in a hotel room, I think in Chicago, watching that. I was just transitioning. I was getting ready to leave Purdue and move to LA to be a coach. I hated Duke, even though I put Krzyzewski up there. And I just remember when he caught that ball and he just turned and just knocked it down like, but yeah, I can remember exactly where I was watching on a terrible TV in a hotel room, and just had the same reaction that 80% of America had. Like, why Christian Laettner?
Right, of all guys.
Right.
Great story and great moment in college basketball. Now today's NBA, you're watching the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you like? Who do you have going to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals?
I think the winner of the Boston-Miami series, I feel like coming out of the East. I think Boston, I just don't know if they have a guy that'll take over late in the game, but they're so good early in the game that maybe they may not need that. Miami, I think, is the best coached in the NBA. I don't know how they're doing it, and Jimmy Butler is a freak in the playoffs. Holy cow. I was literally thinking like 10 years ago, he was like a 3 or a 2, and no one, he was like an added bonus, and now he's, dropping 50 pieces on you. I'm a Laker hater. I'm not really a Warrior lover either. I'm a Clipper guy, so I don't want to even go in there. But I think the Warriors overall have more pieces. I think Darvin Ham's going to be a good coach, but this is his first go around. Steve Kerr's been around, and I think LeBron's not as impactful as he was. Even if you look at his game in Game 2, he has 23, plays almost flawless, but it was almost unimpactful. So I feel like it's AD's team now, and he's like this.
Yeah, he is.
And so I think there's less of that with the Warriors, and I think it's the Warriors in 6, and then I think the Warriors are going to win it, which hurts me to say.
You got them. You think Denver's going to make it out?
I think Denver will beat Phoenix. I think Game 3 will say a lot in that. But I just don't think Denver's got the savvy and the moxie that the Warriors do. It's just my opinion.
Gotcha. And so Boston, Miami, and then Golden State will make it to the finals. Makes sense. I have Phoenix. I had Phoenix. It's changed. This is last week, so last week's episode I changed my mind. So yeah, I probably actually have I have Denver making it to the finals because of their wing depth with defense and their flexibility to change positions when Jamal Murray's playing the way he's playing. That's scary to me for any point
For
guard
sure.
to compete with that. Now, Golden State has people who can lock down on that and some difference makers. But put that on that, the runner up for the MVP, Jokic, and what he can do.
Well, and I'm not sure that Golden State has the size to match Jokic either.
They got Draymond. And so they have Draymond and Looney, who are probably two of the smartest
for sure,
defenders I've ever seen play the game. Just watching what they do, how they can move and switch and rotate, and Draymond's literally calling plays out there
so
on
smart.
the money.
Basketball IQ's through the roof.
Yeah, so I think they would be the ones to do it. But ultimately, I think with Jamal Murray playing at a high level and all the other pieces they have, that they can outlast, because the Warriors' bench is so inconsistent. Jordan Poole is inconsistent, and whoever else is really coming off the bench. So I want the Lakers to do it, but just looking at basketball here. From the East, I have Boston as well. I think Boston with Brown and Tatum. Between one of those two, somebody's taking the last shot. And then they have some, Horford's down there with the vet experience and doing his thing. Marcus Smart he's a monster. He's that, that enforcer on the court, and he can make shots now that he couldn't do, a few years ago when they were playing LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals. So no, I think Boston and Denver for sure. Probably Boston winning it. Yeah.
Well, I hope you're right about Denver, because I don't like the Warriors or the Lakers. So I hope you're right, and I get to enjoy the playoffs through June.
Right. Coach, pleasure having you on the show. Love you, brother.
Love you too. This was fun.
If you guys need to get in contact with Pastor Mike on Instagram,
Pastor Mike 91.
Are you on Twitter?
I am. Coach Mike 1991.
There we go. The links will be in the down below. And yeah, I'm sure he'll be open to talking to you about his experiences and here to help from a pastoring standpoint. And he also runs a small recruiting service that he helps out with kids getting to all levels of college. So yep, he's here for you. So thank you again. I hope to see you guys next time. Peace.